So Congresswoman Paulina Luna appeared on Joe Rogan's show, and she claims there are interdimensional beings that she is 100% aware of.
I can also tell you, and this might sound crazy, but based on our investigations and stuff that we've seen, okay, there is definitely something that I think would rival what we know currently with physics, and a tech that potentially is out there that we don't have the ability to reproduce, because it would basically be like dropping a cell phone right off back during the time of maybe caveman. So like we just don't have the tech to develop it yet. What I can also tell you is based on our interviews, and this has been something that you can go back and watch with the congressional hearings, but I was actually able to ask some of the witnesses, what are these things? And they keep saying interdimensional. And then when you talk about the interdimensional aspect of, are these things pre-existing, maybe outside of what we currently know as our own dimension, that stuff can kind of all sound crazy. But at the end of the day, my job as an investigator is to receive all the information, decipher it, and then ultimately from a congressional aspect, if you do have contractors that are withholding information or operating outside of the purview of the federal government, there's budgetary issues, but there's definitely something that I can tell you with confidence that exists that we don't know how to explain currently.
So when you say that it operates outside our understanding of physics, what specifically are you saying? Like what happened?
To I guess break it down in simple terms is that I think that some of the tech that exists, that whatever these things have, these energy things have.
Energy things? What do you mean?
Well, they call them interdimensional beings. I think that they can actually operate through the time spaces that we currently have. And that's not something that I came up with on my own. That's based on stuff that we've seen. That's based on information that we've been told. And then also, too, I think that there's this historical aspect of, this gets into the deeper theories and concepts of religion, and I think the history that we currently know, and that kind of spins off into another topic of, you have the modern day Bible, you have this aspect of Bibles or books of the Bible that have been removed that explain and kind of touch on these topics. And I think that we're in a time and age where you have such a vast amount of information that we have access to via social media, via your cell phone, via the internet. And so it's really changing the way that we understand, the origins of life and the spiritual reality that we know.
When you
currently
say interdimensional beings, that they know that these are interdimensional beings, how do they know that?
Based on testimony would be based on witnesses that have come forward, but what I can tell you is
the witnesses just were told that they were interdimensional?
that they've seen things. And what I can tell you without getting into classified conversations is that there have been incidences that I believe where very credible people have reported that there have been movement outside of time and space.
That's very vague.
Yeah. So, look.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Look. Have I seen a portal open? No. Have I seen a spaceship? Personally, no. Have I seen evidence of this? Yes. Have I seen photo documentation of aircraft that I believe were not made by mankind? Yes. Is there historical significance to this? Yes. Is there multiple events that go back to, I would argue, maybe even before the time of Christ that have documented this in text? Yes. So do I believe that the government has access to certain technology? Yes, to an extent. And I believe that certain contractors potentially have back engineered this tech. I think that that's what can explain the advancements that we're seeing. But I also believe that this is a dangerous level of hidden information from the American people, because if you have an aspect of the federal government, which I can tell you, I, with two other members of Congress, were denied access to information at Eglin Air Force Base pertaining to whistleblowers because of the fact, and we can get into that story and what happened at Eglin in a second, but we were denied access and told that we don't have security clearance or the read-in authority on a special access program. That's a problem, because I'm supposed to represent and be an investigative body, and you have then people who are unelected that are operating basically in secrecy, and that's a problem.
Okay. Interdimensional beings. That's even more disruptive than aliens. Now, this could go a couple of ways. I think when, let's say this is real, aliens are real, or interdimensional beings are real, And now, how is society going to react to this? And this could go one of two ways. You could end up with kind of a golden utopian era where Earthlings realize that we're all one, we're Earthlings, and we share technology, and the aliens or the interdimensional beings come and they give us their clean energy, and how it's all free, and everybody can use it. And it's kind of this wonderful golden era of peace and prosperity because everybody gets to use the alien tech and people don't have to fight, and Earthlings realize, we're just Earthlings and we're all the same, and maybe religion takes a back seat because people realize I don't know anything, because now there's these interdimensional beings or aliens. I mean, it could certainly go that way, but I think you and I both know it's not going to go that way, that's not the way it will go if it turns out that interdimensional beings and aliens are real. I have the inclination to believe that they are real. I think it's scientifically impossible that we are the only living creatures in the entire universe. I think that's kind of a ridiculous notion. So, of course, there's others. The question is, have they actually been able to contact us? Are they that sophisticated? Or are we all just kind of floating on our own individual isolated bubbles? And, we're all just kind of without any real way to contact each other. I mean, we can't contact them. They can't contact us. But I certainly believe they exist. So then if it's, okay, they exist, but now they've actually been able to, they're advanced and they've contacted us in some way, or they're interdimensional. The thing about interdimensional beings that changes the game is that changes science. Science now has to have an overhaul. So aliens coming to visit us from a faraway land, that is just perhaps advances in current science. But when you start talking about interdimensional beings, it's like they have to kind of throw all the science out the window and start from scratch. And that can cause, but they've had to do it before in the past. They can do it again. It is what it is. But it certainly shifts things around a bit. But what's likely to happen from this, and this is where people get really skeptical and they start to think, this is just the whole notion now of the government. Now, this is a congresswoman talking to us about aliens. This whole notion that the government is now in on, yes, there's aliens. Sorry, we haven't been telling you. Right? We're seeing congressional hearings. We're seeing Congress people now come out saying, yeah, there's aliens. Right? I mean, now it's like okay to talk about, and you're not considered a nutbag by thinking, yeah, aliens are here. And by the way, the government's been able to intercept them, and they've been doing it all these years. And everybody who made the claims were called crazy conspiracy theorists and made to believe that, everybody was told that these people were nuts. And now it's, suddenly, no, actually, okay, they're telling the truth. So one question is, people think the government is making it up because this is just to start a better, bigger, badder arms race. I mean, you thought the Cold War was something. Now think about going up against aliens or interdimensional beings. Suddenly, we're going to need an unknown number of weapons, and they have to be highly sophisticated, which cost a ton of money, right? So the arms race implication is massive. So that's why a lot of people think this is just a ploy of the military-industrial complex. They realize people are tiring on endless Middle Eastern wars. They realize that at some point in the near future, the world will actually just kind of get along because human beings are, throughout time, we are, even though we are quite warmongery, we're actually less warmongery, believe it or not, than we've been, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago. There were a lot more wars, all throughout. You just look at Italy alone, for example, and every city was at war with each other back then. And that's why the entire country, when you go throughout Europe and you see these fortified little towns, every single tiny town was fortified. Well, why was that? Because they were constantly under attack from one another. So they had war nonstop, endlessly, from village to village. And now our wars aren't village to village. You don't have cities in the United States at war with each other. You don't have cities in Italy at war with each other. But now we do have nations that are at war with each other. But eventually, I think that the writing's on the wall that we're becoming a more enlightened species. And through time, we're just going to hit naturally a point where we're not going to war with each other. So the military-industrial complex is thinking ahead and realizing, well, we've got to have somebody to war with, otherwise our industry dies. Here's a great idea, aliens. So there is a thought that maybe all of this chatter is actually just kind of a ploy of the military-industrial complex. But if it is true, and suddenly aliens pop up, the implications really kind of change everything, and in some ways a good way, but it should be a good way. I mean, suddenly you'd think that the religious people, especially those committing genocide and saying, because God said that I could, you'd think that if aliens showed up, that suddenly they'd realize, oh, maybe the faith that I've had is not accurate. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is, none of this biblical God that we've been talking about. Or maybe the biblical God was actually these aliens and they were here 2,000 years ago and they're back, and now they're saying, oh, we don't do war. And, certainly killing all of these children doesn't make you entitled to this land. I mean, that's what I'd hope the aliens would say. So then it could cause a massive, all the religious people would have to really stop and think, right? This would definitely cause a major crisis of faith for many, many people. Now, I think many people, maybe not most, but many would certainly just go into denial mode. Even if the aliens were slapping them in the face, they would just go into denial mode, or they would just say, you're the devil, right? You're a ploy, or some sort of incarnation of Satan. And that's what this is. You're not real. And I still believe in my God. I'm still going to have my faith. I think you're going to see a lot of that. But it would also create suddenly, all of these new religions. I mean, suddenly we would see new religions, alien-based new religions that pop up and become quite dominant and prominent. And so we could see a major shakeup in that way. We could see, countries could come together and say, we're earthlings. But we all know what's going to really happen. A few of the countries are going to gain access to the tech. They're going to weaponize it. They're going to keep the smaller countries down. They're going to ensure that the smaller countries don't have access, that they're beholden to the bigger countries. It could completely shake up the alliance of countries. It could completely shake up which countries are more powerful than others, depending on who gains the alien tech. And Paulina Luna is claiming that the alien tech is already with us. This is something also Stephen Greer, when he talks about aliens, he says, yeah, the tech is already here. They've already had the tech for a while, and they've been kind of reverse engineering it and using it. So I think also we would see a big push for global governance. This is the fastest way to get us all on board with a global governance. You didn't want global control before. Well, you're going to get it if the aliens are here. I mean, that's what governments will do, is that they'll say, well, we have to come together and we need to have an earthling government, and everybody needs to be under the earthling government control. So it would consolidate that control. We'd probably see the collapse of certain energy industries, which is probably a good thing. They would be replaced with new ones. We'd see kind of new age wealth coming about, depending on the type of tech that they're able to gain access to, and if they end up monetizing it, which of course they would. And, there could be a lot of fracturing amongst this society, amongst people, just those who believe and those who don't. And you know how it is. I mean, I would think, well, how could you deny it if the aliens are amongst us? I mean, if we actually see them and they show up, how could you possibly deny that? But then again, COVID pandemic showed me people will deny a lot. Even if it's slapping them in the face, they will totally deny it because they have a certain belief. So you can't even change that. But the bottom line is, if it turns out that aliens, if Paulina Luna is telling us the truth and the interdimensional beings start showing themselves, because that would be one question, like, why aren't they showing themselves? And why is it, and this is why it becomes really suspicious, that maybe this is just a military-industrial complex talking point, because why is it that they're only really showing themselves to the government? I mean, I know that there's individuals who say, I saw an alien or I was abducted by an alien or whatever, but you think it would be done at larger scales, that more and more people would have these experiences, especially if they're interdimensional. You would think, unless it's very difficult to travel interdimensional and only some can, and then they choose to contact our government, or they choose to, or somehow the government is able to get to the information before the massive, billions of people. That part's a little hard for me to believe. It just seems like, how would the aliens know exactly who to contact? Do you think they care about who our president is or who the government leaders are and, take me to your leader? Do you think that they really, or do you think that they would just be like, here we are, surprise, and people would just have to contend with it and the government wouldn't be able to cover it up? I mean, so, my inclination at this point is, yes, I've always believed that aliens exist because mathematically, I think that the probability is so low that they don't exist. It's like a non-existent probability. So of course I think they exist. But the government now suddenly, over the last couple of years, admitting this, coming out and saying, I've seen evidence of interdimensional beings or whatever. I mean, this just seems like another toolkit coming, or another tool coming right out of the kit of the military-industrial complex. But I'm curious to hear what you think. You can go ahead and tweet at me at Kim Iverson Show. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.